According to General Hospital spoilers, fans are demanding Willow Tate's mental health therapy, citing it as the only way for her character to move ahead. Willow has received numerous complaints on social media as she continues to make poor judgments and allow herself to be misled. Drew Kane's holding Nina Reeves responsible for the heated secret they kept offered Willow yet more reason to lash out at her mother. Drew has only caused Willow misery and destruction, but she was eager to make a bargain with him regardless in the August 27th episode. If Drew can reclaim Willow's children, she is willing to give him the reunion she desires. We can understand Willow's desperation on some level, but she's bargaining with the person who has caused her so much heartache. Willow's life began to crumble as soon as she fell for Drew. Although Drew has repeatedly demonstrated that he cannot be trusted, Willow has allowed herself to become entangled in his twisted web once more. Willow knows Drew was willing to lie to wily Corinthos and play with his emotions, yet she turned to him for aid regardless. The more this tale continues, the more unstable Willow appears. Willow really doesn't need to be treating patients in her current state, especially after abruptly whacking Lucas Jones at the hospital. We must forget Willow's choice to stop Daisy Gilmore and drive her out of town, along with Sasha Gilmore Corbin. Whether Willow ends up at Shady Brook, Ferncliff, or another facility, she clearly requires mental health therapy. Willow has spiraled out of control and may use some expert assistance. Willow has always had troubles as a result of her cult upbringing, but she was once a much stronger figure who was brilliant and kind. Willow has become a shadow of her former self, and many GH fans are pushing for mental health treatment to help her get back on track. Would you root for Willow again if she received therapy and became a better version of herself? Do you think that is Willow's route to redemption? General Hospital spoilers are available for Friday, August 29th, 2025. Fans should expect Britt Westbourne to become suspicious. Meanwhile, someone may be preparing to rescue Vaughn and Jocelyn Jacks. Back in Port Charles, Trina Robinson looks to Kai Taylor for assistance. Continue reading to learn more about what will happen in the next episode of ABC's soap opera. Trina Robinson and Kai Taylor unite. Let's begin with Stella Henry, who was arrested for medical insurance fraud. Stella did break the rules, but she did it to help Martin Gray get the medical care he needed. Stella's freedom may now be at risk. While Stella expresses her anxieties, Trina is determined to find answers. Knowing Drew Kane is behind this, Trina seeks Kai's assistance. Perhaps this is a method for him to seek redemption. After all, he adores Stella and believes she is a decent person. Portia Robinson's blame game. Trina has an argument with her mother. In a preview clip, Portia appears to blame her kid for the issue with Drew. In a sample clip, Trina asks, shocked and enraged, "This entire situation with Drew is my fault?" Returning to Stella, she encourages Jordan Ashford to persuade Curtis of something. The matriarch informs the former commissioner that she is the only person he will listen to. Willow Tate explains General Hospital teasers for Friday, August 29th show that Elizabeth Baldwin is caught aback. When she queries Willow Tate, the nurse says Drew is her best option. While it's understandable that Willow feels surrounded, I'm not sure why she's now turning back to him, unless she intends to gain redemption by defeating Drew. Meanwhile, Curtis instructs Drew to stop this insanity immediately. The man seemed enraged enough to wring Drew's neck with his bare hands. So, if Drew dies, there will be many suspects. Over with Harrison Chase, he provides some concerning facts about Willow. This could definitely complicate matters for Willow. On Friday, August 29th, 2025, fans will witness Carly Spencer receive an offer. Jocelyn and Vaughn continue to be hostages at the Five Poppies. The inexperienced agent yells, "They are in there." However, may someone unexpectedly appear at the door? Which narrative are you most looking forward to witnessing on Friday, August 29th, 2025? Share your opinions in the comments area below. Keep watching ABC soap operas to find out what happens next. Willow sat silently in the hospital chapel, the faint hum of fluorescent lights above her head scarcely audible against the weight on her chest. The air around her seemed heavy, as if every unspoken word, every unprocessed emotion she had suppressed for months demanded to be acknowledged. Her life had been a constant haze of medical treatments, family dysfunction, and emotional landmines since her leukemia diagnosis, but now, for the first time, the struggle was with her mind as well as her body. Michael had tried to reach her and pull her out of the darkness that appeared to swallow her whole, but there was only so much he could do when she no longer understood herself. Willow was horrified by her collapse during her previous meeting with Nina, which had not only startled her family. She was beginning to realize she couldn't escape the trauma she was carrying, not from Nina, Harmony's falsehoods, or the heavy demands of being a wonderful wife, mother, and daughter. Everything was collapsing at once, and it was clear, if she didn't treat her mental health seriously, she risked losing everything she had worked so hard to keep. Michael, sitting near her, rubbed his palms together, as if the motion might burn away his frustration. He loved Willow, but seeing her retreat farther and deeper into herself was tearing him in ways he couldn't articulate. He wanted to shield her from everything, from Nina's manipulative games, Drew's pressure over the ELQ debacle, and Carly's incessant attempts to maintain control over everyone's decisions, but Willow no longer required protection. She needed to heal. Michael wasn't sure he was prepared to confront what that healing would entail. He was afraid that therapy would bring up memories Willow had hidden away, things he was unaware of, secrets buried beneath Harmony's web of deceit, and endless lies about her birth family. What if the revelations broke her forever? But doing nothing was no longer an option. Willow finally spoke, her voice gentle and almost frail, but with an edge of tiredness. She admitted that she had been waking up in the middle of the night, soaked in perspiration and troubled by violent nightmares she couldn't shake. Harmony's face came in them frequently, contorted with regret and grief, but occasionally the dream shifted, and Nina was there instead, yelling at her and accusing her for keeping Wiley away. Willow relived events from her hospital bed, feeling suffocated by the uncertainty of whether she would live long enough to raise her children. She told Michael that she had started fretting whenever she was alone, her chest tightening till she could not breathe. Saying it aloud made her feel vulnerable, but she couldn't hide behind the front of strength that everyone expected of her. Michael reached for her hand, clutching her tightly, but Willow could feel the hopelessness in his eyes despite his pledge to be at her side. He didn't quite comprehend what she was going through, and she couldn't expect him to. It wasn't his fault, but the fact was clear, her healing couldn't come from Michael, Carly, or anyone else. It has to stem from her determination to confront her pain full on. That realization worried her more than anything. Willow felt an odd mixture of comfort and terror when she first met with Dr. Kevin Collins. She wasn't sure if she believed therapy might help her, but something within told her it was time to stop running. Kevin didn't force her to talk about her deepest scars right away. Instead, he provided a space where silence was acceptable, where she didn't have to be the strong mother, the perfect wife, or the peacekeeper caught between Michael and Nina's never-ending battle. He posed straightforward questions about her day, her concerns, and her relationship with her own identity. Willow broke down totally during one of those sessions, revealing for the first time that she no longer knew who she was. Her entire sense of self had been fashioned by falsehoods, from Harmony's manipulation to Nina's unexpected incursion into her life to the ongoing tug-of-war over Wiley's fate. She realized she had never actually paused to digest any of it, instead opting to conceal her emotions in order to maintain tranquility. But Kevin made her realize that repressing her pain was slowly harming her. They discussed the burden of perfectionism and how Willow felt compelled to care for everyone else, even when she was the one in need of saving. For the first time, she realized that prioritizing her own mental health did not make her selfish, but rather human. Outside the treatment room, her personal troubles continued. Nina, wanting to rebuild her relationship with her daughter, continued to show up unexpectedly, making Willow nervous and apprehensive with each encounter. Meanwhile, Carly attempted to fix everything by keeping Nina at a distance, which only made problems worse. Michael's quiet animosity of Nina bubbled beneath the surface, creating a setting so hostile that Willow frequently withdrew only to avoid starting another confrontation. Every time she started to make progress in therapy, someone or something in her life yanked her back. During one especially brutal therapy session, Kevin proposed group therapy, meeting with other parents who had experienced similar family disputes, betrayals, and identity issues. Willow initially protested the concept. The idea of opening up to strangers seemed unfathomable. But Kevin said that part of the healing process included learning she wasn't alone, that her sorrow wasn't unique or humiliating. Despite her instincts, she attended the first session. She met other mothers and fathers who had struggled to restore their identities after heartbreaking losses, manipulations, and broken homes. Willow felt an unexpected sensation of kinship as she listened to their stories. She wasn't the only one trying to reconcile motherhood, marriage, and her own mental health. She wasn't broken beyond repair. This transformation did not occur quickly, but Willow gradually began incorporating the techniques she gained in treatment into her daily life. She began journaling late at night when her thoughts grew too overpowering, expressing her concerns into paper rather than allowing them to devour her. She learned breathing techniques to calm herself during panic attacks, tiny mindfulness exercises to ground herself when the turmoil around her threatened to spiral, and even started setting boundaries, which she had never done before. Setting boundaries, however, comes with consequences. Nina was furious when Willow told her she needed space, misinterpreting it as another rejection rather than an opportunity to rebuild trust. Michael, too, struggled when Willow indicated she needed time to make decisions regarding Wiley without being pressured. Willow stayed firm, knowing that taking control of her life was part of the healing process, even if it made others uncomfortable. This unexpected strength astounded even her. However, healing was not a linear process. Willow awoke some days feeling positive, ready to face her life head-on, while other nights the weight of everything threatened to overwhelm her once more. The triggers never went away, the scent of hospital disinfectant still reminded her of her chemo treatments, and overhearing Michael and Carly chatting about Nina made her chest tighten with fear. But now, instead of suppressing her emotions, she confronts them. In one of her later sessions, Kevin encouraged Willow to confront the unresolved anger she had toward Harmony, the lady who reared her on lies. Willow had resisted those emotions for so long, fearing that admitting her wrath would somehow be disrespectful to Harmony's memory. But as she said the words aloud, tears streamed down her cheeks, she felt an unexpected sense of relief. She began to believe that loving Harmony and hating what she did could coexist, that she did not have to pick between the two. By this point, Michael had observed her changes. She was calmer, more grounded, and gradually rediscovered her voice. For the first time in months, their conversations extended beyond Wiley, Nina, and hospital treatments. They resumed talking about their future, not the version defined by everyone else's agendas, but one they could create together. Still, there was a growing fear that everything they were building would disintegrate if Willow did not stay dedicated to her mental health journey. Outside factors continued to exert pressure: Nina's guilt-driven intrusions, Carly's insistence on narrative control, Drew's disagreements with Michael about ELQ, and even Christina's involvement in the Corinthos family drama all added to the continual stress. Willow, on the other hand, was learning to remove herself from the chaos, to see that she could only manage her own decisions, not those of others. Her route ahead was about learning to live with the trauma rather than having it define her. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future in which she could be present with her children without fear hanging over her, where she could rebuild her relationship with Michael on mutual understanding rather than obligation, and where her complicated relationship with Nina could be approached with compassion rather than conflict. Willow's journey to healing was about more than simply restoring her marriage or reuniting her damaged family. It was also about preserving her own identity. For so long, her identity had been defined by disease, secrets, and other people's struggles. Now, through treatment, she was rediscovering herself beneath all of the agony, finding the strength to choose herself for once. And, while the road ahead remained uncertain, she realized that her worth was not dependent on being perfect, keeping the peace, or pleasing everyone around her. Willow felt like she could breathe again after years. Willow's mind was spinning out of control, her ideas twisting and colliding until she couldn't tell reality from the delusion sneaking in. Michael had moved away from her, stating he needed room to sort things out, and she had been clinging to bits of hope, convinced herself that he still loved her and that this absence was only temporary. But, deep down, she realized something was changing, something she couldn't quite control. Her hold on her sanity had been tenuous since the cancer diagnosis and everything that followed, but it was unraveling faster than she expected. She continued replaying each exchange in her thoughts, analyzing Michael's remarks, the hesitations in his voice, and the way his gaze avoided hers. Every peaceful moment became a maelstrom within her chest, and she found herself plunging into a world where terror and fantasy blended together. At the same moment, Jocelyn became stuck in her own nightmare. The shadows of danger seemed to follow her no matter how quickly she hurried away. Ever since the facts about Dex were revealed, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her, hiding in the corners, waiting for the ideal moment to strike. Her intuition told her something was wrong, and her senses had rarely let her down before. She hadn't told anyone how bad things had gotten because she didn't want to appear paranoid, but her nights were spent awake, haunted by the sound of footfall that weren't there and murmurs she couldn't quite hear. Jocelyn tried to convince herself she was hallucinating, but deep down she knew this dread was real, and that someone out there was pulling threads she couldn't detect. Meanwhile, Britt had been watching events unfold from the sidelines, her keen instincts detecting a storm beneath the surface. Something about the tension between Willow, Michael, and Jocelyn bothered her, and the more she observed, the more she felt as if she was missing a critical piece of the picture. Britt had a knack for detecting lies before they were spoken, and lately, Port Charles was full of them. There were too many secrets circulating, too many whispered chats behind closed doors. Every time she sought to acquire answers, someone would divert or change the subject, which aroused her skepticism even more. Britt couldn't shake the idea that someone was manipulating everyone, laying traps, creating havoc, and waiting for the right moment to watch it all fall apart. Trina, however, reached her breaking point. She had been holding everything in for weeks, biting her tongue as drama after drama unfurled around her, but her patience had finally run out. She had trusted the people around her and believed in their loyalty, but now she was caught in the center of a storm she had never asked to be a part of. Trina's rage was more intense than she'd ever felt, and when she erupted, it was raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. Her confrontation was about more than just one person or one mistake. It was about every betrayal, deceit, every instance in which someone she cared about chose secrets over honesty. The words poured out of her like fire, and there was no going back. Willow's delusions worsened during the next few days. She convinced herself that Michael's distancing was not rejection, but rather a test to discover how dedicated she was. Every unanswered call served as proof in her mind that he was hurting as well, that he wanted her as much as she wanted him but couldn't express it. She began envisioning full discussions in her brain, including unfulfilled reconciliations and pledges. Sasha attempted to contact her, concerned about how disconnected she had become, but Willow dismissed her with fake smiles and reassurance that everything was okay. Under the surface, however, she was unraveling piece by piece, clinging to dreams because reality had become intolerable. Jocelyn's anxiety, on the other hand, was becoming difficult to conceal. Every time her phone vibrated, she jumped. Every unexpected vehicle parked outside the house made her heart race. She was convinced that someone was following her, monitoring her, and waiting for the right moment to strike. Dex tried to calm her down, telling her that she was secure and that he would not let anything happen to her, but she couldn't get rid of the fear that was clawing at her heart. The more he tried to soothe her, the more she thought he was concealing something important, something dangerous. She confronted him one night, demanding explanations, but Dex hesitated, and his hesitation revealed everything she needed to know. Someone out there wanted vengeance, and Dex was smack in the thick of it. Brit's suspicions began to connect dots that no one else desired to perceive. She spent late nights sifting through old medical records, overheard conversations, and long-forgotten tales until a scary possibility emerged in her mind. Whatever was happening to Willow, Michael, Jocelyn, and Dex was not coincidental. Someone was arranging it, purposefully bringing them all into the same web. Brit knew she had to be cautious about who she faced, but she also realized time was running short. If her instincts were correct, the danger was no longer lurking in the background. It was already present, hiding in plain sight, waiting for one wrong move to set everything on fire. Meanwhile, Trina was still struggling. Her explosion had alarmed everyone, but it had not resolved anything. In reality, it had exacerbated the gaps in their relationships. People were suddenly taking sides, muttering behind each other's backs, and questioning every decision. Trina despised the chaos, but she refused to be silent any longer. She was determined to find out the truth, no matter how unpleasant it was or how many people were injured. She began digging, asking questions no one wanted to answer, forcing talks that had been avoided for months. And the farther she investigated, the more she found everything was interconnected in ways she hadn't expected. The tension at Port Charles was rising to a boiling point. Willow's illusions were driving her to make risky decisions, Jocelyn's anxiety was turning into paranoia, Brit's suspicions were uncovering secrets no one wanted revealed, and Trina's rage was starting fires that couldn't be extinguished. Every speech now contained secret meanings, every glance hinted at betrayal, and no one knew who to trust. Even Sonny was beginning to sense the tension simmering beneath the surface, but he had no idea how close everything was to bursting. Then came the night and everything changed. Jocelyn awoke to a faint, intentional, and unsettling noise outside her window. She reached for her phone, her hands quivering, and looked through the blinds to see a shadow moving at the property's edge. She froze, holding her breath and listening for any indication of who it could be. Before she could call Dex, her phone rang with an unknown number, and when she answered, there was only quiet on the other end. The silence worried her more than any menace could. She knew right away that someone was observing her, and they wanted her to know it. At the same moment, Brit figured out the final piece of information. Someone had manipulated medical files at the hospital, including those related to Willow's treatment, and the handwriting matched someone she never expected. Her stomach dropped as the reality set in, and she knew she couldn't keep it to herself any longer. She grabbed her phone, preparing to call the only person she trusted, but before she could, the screen went blank. Power outage. Darkness engulfed the entire hospital floor, and Brit felt a cold feeling of dread pour over her. This was no coincidence. Trina, meantime, made her own startling find. While looking through some of Rory's old belongings, she came uncovered evidence linking him to a series of occurrences that everyone assumed were unrelated. It connected him to the same shadows tormenting Jocelyn, the same manipulations propelling Willow's descent, and the same network Brit had been pursuing. The treachery hit her like a blow in the chest, and she realized there was no turning back. Everything she thought she knew about the people around her had been broken. By daybreak, Port Charles was on edge. The tension that had been building for weeks had now reached a tipping point, and no one knew where the next blow would come from. Willow awoke more determined than ever to fight for Michael, no matter the cost. Jocelyn was resolved to defend herself, even if it meant going behind Dex's back. Brit had no choice but to confront the person she suspected was behind the manipulation, even if it placed her life in jeopardy. And Trina, she'd had enough of holding back. She wasn't going to simply erupt this time. She was about to divulge everything. However, the truth had a way of twisting itself in Port Charles, and each step closer to the answers drew them farther into peril. Secrets were no longer concealed, and those who kept them were beginning to understand they were losing power. The stakes had never been higher, and every decision from this point forward had consequences they couldn't avoid. The links connecting Willow's delusions, Jocelyn's horror, Britt's suspicions, and Trina's explosion were more than just intertwined, they were part of a much larger plan, one that none of them really understood. And as the final piece of the puzzle fell into place, the consequences would leave scars that none of them could conceal. Willow's fixation with holding on to Michael grew to consume all of her waking moments. She sat in their empty living room, gripping her phone and scrolling endlessly through old images of the two of them, looking for indications in his smile, gaze, and touch, proof that what they had was still true. Her rational mind said that Michael had backed away, that his quiet meant something, but her heart refused to believe it. She convinced herself that he was merely stressed, that outside forces were dragging him away, and that if she battled hard enough, she would be able to repair everything. Her hallucination was no longer harmless, it was pushing her toward perilous decisions. Sasha, who was genuinely concerned, knocked on Willow's door, pleading with her to take a step back and focus on her health and the children, but Willow snapped, accusing Sasha of supporting Michael and abandoning her. Tears welled in her eyes as she closed the door, locking herself away in the false safety of her fantasy, where Michael still loved her and their family was impenetrable. Meanwhile, Jocelyn's dread grew darker. Her palms shook any time her phone vibrated, fearing that the next unknown call would contain a warning she couldn't ignore. The unusual noises outside her window became nightly occurrences, with footsteps in the driveway, shadows creeping past the hedges, and faint whispers she couldn't identify. She stopped sleeping completely, pacing her room late into the night, gripping a baseball bat Dex had given her just in case. She wanted to believe he was telling her the truth when he pledged to protect her, but the weight of his lies was too much to bear. One night, she confronted him again, demanding to know who was following her and why. Dex paused for too long before responding, his gaze changing in a way that made her stomach drop. "There are things you don't understand, Joss," he said quietly, his voice taut with anxiety. "If I tell you, you'll be in even more danger." She didn't want to hear that. Britt's instincts, sharper than anyone had given her credit for, guided her deeper into the web of disaster. She discovered something frightening in the hospital records, anomalies related to Willow's treatments, slight changes in prescriptions, and missing files that no one could explain. Someone had tampered with important documents, and Britt was confident it wasn't by accident. Willow's instincts screamed that she was being exploited on a deeper level than just sadness. The trouble was that Britt had no idea who did it. Late at night, she sat in her office, the faint hum of fluorescent lights filling the silence as she pieced together every bit of information she could. The more she discovered, the clearer it seemed that someone wanted Willow's world destroyed, and they were using everyone around her as pawns. Trina, on the other hand, was fed up with sitting in the background and watching others make mistakes. After learning Rory's hidden ties to various illicit dealings in Port Charles, she felt her entire world spin on its axis. Betrayal burned fiercely in her breast, but she refused to let it devour her. Instead, she channeled her rage into determination. She confronted Ava first, seeking information she knew Ava was hiding from her. The argument was violent, with Ava trying to deflect as Trina's voice shook with rage, but in the end, Ava's silence told Trina all she needed to know. There were bigger secrets being kept hidden, and everyone was shielding someone. Trina left the museum that night with a commitment to herself. She was done allowing others to control the story. That vow led her directly into danger. While investigating Rory's past, Trina came across an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Port Charles. She didn't tell anyone where she was going for fear of being stopped, but when she stepped inside, she realized she'd made a mistake by coming alone. The walls were covered in paperwork, images, and surveillance equipment related to everyone she knew, including Willow, Jocelyn, Britt, Dex, and even Sunny. Someone had been monitoring them all for months, gathering information and waiting for the right moment to strike. Trina took a couple shots on her phone before hearing footsteps behind her, causing her heart to race. She huddled behind a stack of crates, holding her breath as the sound of heavy boots approached. Whoever was operating this operation was aware of her presence, and if she did not leave quickly, she would not be able to return. Willow sat on her bedroom floor, rocking gently while clutching an old letter from Michael. In her mind, his words promised a future they could yet have, but the world outside her door was crumbling. Jocelyn was moments away from a confrontation she couldn't avoid, Britt was on the edge of exposing a plot she couldn't prove, and Trina was seconds away from being trapped in the lion's den. None of them recognized how connected their tales were, or how close they were to a breaking point that would forever impact Port Charles.